Okay, I'm back with another opinion video about the Karen Read trial. So we are now in jury deliberation. The closing arguments, in my opinion, I thought Alan Jackson did a great job. What was really helpful is that he used his time to just go point by point by point. He spent 3 or 4 minutes on this topic and 3 or 4 minutes on this topic and 3 or 4 minutes on this topic. So he lined it all up and he was talking about things. There were some things that I had completely forgotten were part of the trial. And there were things that I thought maybe might not be so instrumental at the time, but now I can understand how he wove it all back together. He was not shy about going after that third party or third culprit, defense. He was naming names and he was saying, this is exactly what I think happened. So I think he did a nice job of showing reasonable doubt. Lolly, I think he's at the point where he is doing the best he can, but I think he's a little ill-equipped. And I don't just mean that up against Jackson. I just kind of think I mean that in general. I think Lolly does have a communication style that is sort of circular and repetitive, and I think it gets a little confusing. In ADA, he's probably one of I don't know how many, and he's probably moderately talented. They just rarely come up against this type of defense. So I think he was just ill-prepared, and he's struggling to do the best he can. Look, I made that seem totally impartial when I think he's a big old fucking goober, but I'm trying to be impartial. Anyway, so we did closing arguments. The jury's in deliberation. Now, they have spent 8 hours in the jury room already. People on one side of this that think there's so much reasonable doubt that this should have come back in a half a second. But I'm actually pretty relieved that the jury's taking their time and they're looking back through all the evidence. I think the prosecution's case was really exhausting. Like I said, I think Lolly went around in circles. I don't think there was a conciseness to it. I don't know if there was ever a point where he showed, a 3D model of here's exactly what happened. Like, I don't know that there was ever that tie it all together with a bow moment that sticks with that jury. So I think it's a good sign that they're kind of going painstakingly through each bit. They've already spent 8 hours on this, which is probably more than Proctor's been investigating the damn thing. So at least we know that they're putting in a concerted effort. And I think it will go on for a few more days. They're probably rewatching all the videos. They're probably going back through the notes. I think it's very promising that they asked for that cert report. I do. It's obvious that they're trying to put together the timeline and trying to determine if maybe some of the evidence had really been found at certain times and had it been manipulated. I get that and I love that. The part I don't like is that Judge Bev says her response is, tell them they have everything they need, they don't get any more evidence. When her response should have been, that evidence doesn't exist. You see, the jury's at a distinct disadvantage because they don't have the outside world. We all know that report doesn't exist, which shocks me. How are you a specialized search team that's called in after 2 other police departments have already done a search and they've said, we think there's more, please come in and please do your thing. This is your specialty. They're called in, and although there is some dashboard cam, there's some pictures taken, this is where they found the shoe. This is where they found some other pieces of taillight. So this is all very important stuff. And the fact that nobody wrote it down. So the jury might have pictures, but there's no detail that says Officer so-and-so found this here. It was tilted at this degree angle. It was found 6 inches away from the curb. Like, there's no detail. So when Judge Bev says you don't get any more evidence, I would hope the jury can put 2 and 2 together to say if it existed, it would be here. So it must not exist. This jury has an awesome responsibility, right? Although I would have loved for them to go in and 3 seconds later come out. Wouldn't that have been resounding? But keep in mind a couple of things. John O'Keefe is a fallen police officer, and he deserves justice. If you are on his jury, the very least you can do is get it right. Because there has been so much fuckery with this case that the very least you can do as a jury is look like you took the time, you looked at every bit of evidence, you looked at it from every different angle, and you made an intelligent decision. The other side of it is this. These people are all residents in Massachusetts. By coming out and saying Karen Read is not guilty, they're saying that multiple police agencies may have messed up this investigation, that there was things they didn't do, there were witnesses they didn't question, there was evidence that may or may not have been planted. They are coming out and saying case put forth by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts didn't hold water. They are saying they did not prove, they did not do justice for John O'Keefe. And if I'm a resident of Massachusetts and I have just kind of boldly made that statement about 3 different police departments, I would start to wonder if every single time I got a parking ticket, they were going to crawl up my ass for the rest of my life. Every bit of law enforcement and government is telling you this happened, and you go, I think you guys are wrong. That's a pretty bold statement. So they want to be sure, and we shouldn't fault them for that. And then Alan Jackson went several rounds with Auntie Bev over the jury verdict slip. So at the top, it says, do you find this person guilty, not guilty of the major crime, like the capital, second degree murder or whatever. And there's a guilty, not guilty. Then there's lesser charges. So it was guilty, guilty, guilty of this, guilty of this. Like it was multi-option, but there was no not guilty boxes under those little sections. And Judge Bev's like, well, isn't it kind of obvious if they don't check the boxes, that means she's not guilty? And he's saying, but by not having the words not guilty on there, it gives the jury the indication that they have, if they say not guilty up top, they have to pick guilty for one of the lesser offenses, because there's no not guilty anyplace else on the page. This is the kind of thing that he would bring up on appeal. Like, this is definitely something that they would say the jury got faulty instructions, so this needs to be, appealed. Judge Bev does not want this verdict to be questioned. She does not want this to come back before the court with another judge who might not be so dedicated to the group of people who are accused of being the third party culprits. So they went ahead and changed the jury slip. Hopefully we might have a verdict by the end of today. But if we don't, then maybe it goes tomorrow. Maybe it goes, by the end of Friday, we might have something. I'm really frankly impressed that they're taking the time to think this through. And I just really hope that there's enough reasonable doubt to let Karen Read go free.